Separatists are fighters to drop their weapons, failure which may attract military clamp down in the economic domain reminded Cameroonians of the importance of reducing imports by processing agricultural commodities to improve on its values. And we have more reactions after President Biya's address to the nation on January 31. What do Cameroonians and politicians think after his December 31 address? You have all these reactions in this edition of News Roundup of the Week. And the town of Bamenda in the northwest region of Cameroon begins a new year on a bad footing. The town went up this week as businesses were shut down ahead of municipal and parliamentary elections coming up this 2019. Political parties have embarked on sensitization campaigns to get more eligible voters registered into the electoral list. It was equally a bad week for workers and management of the Cameroon Development Corporation (CDC) as some of the workers of Likomba rubber plantation were attacked and assaulted. Most of them had their fingers and hands chopped off. The program is News Roundup of the Week. Stay with us. Hello everyone and welcome to News Roundup of the Week. I'm called Maureen, and as usual I'm delighted to be with you. It's the first program in 2019, and we have as guest, she is a Cameroonian politician and entrepreneur and social activist, president of Cameroon's People's Party, and she's also the CEO of Firm Strategies, leadership and management consulting firm. She's wearing more and more caps. I hope I've had a detail of what you really are.
Thank you. Yes, you have. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to all Cameroonians. Happy New Year especially to the workers of the CDC and PAMOL, all of these workers on plantations who have had a particularly rough 2018 and a particularly rough week. And finally, I say Happy Friday in Black. You see that today is Friday. Okay. It is the first Friday of the year, and we are still in black because we are still in protest. We are still standing for political transition in Cameroon. We must make a change. We must make a change. Our people are dying every single day. We can no longer continue on this route in 2019. Cameroonians have to embrace their power and exercise it so that we bring about the change in 2019.
Now, just to make Cameroonians understand that you had your address a New Year message to Cameroonians as the president of Cameroon's People's Party. Now, what particularly were you telling Cameroonians? Because you talked about the crisis in the northwest regions and many more.
Yes. We talked about the fact that in 2018, it was a very tough year for Cameroonians. All of us were shocked to see a video of women with babies on their back who were shot in cold blood murder by our army. We were shocked to see young men lined up in the extreme north and brought down like animals. We saw this on video. We were shocked to imagine that our army, our government, could burn down villages in the northwest and southwest, burn down villages completely, and to have so many people, so many of our people go as refugees to Nigeria, move to the other parts of the country as internally displaced people, without either the head of state or any other person showing any true concern for these Cameroonians. We were also shocked at the end of the year to find that it seems Cameroon is incapable of organizing an election. We watched live how elections are, how fraud is carried out in elections in Cameroon. And then, as if that was not enough, by the end of the year, when some people thought, okay, we are going to escape into football, we are going to be able to at least drown our sorrows in the organization of the African Nations Cup. That too was withdrawn from us. Why? Because of our incapacity. We had 5 years, because sometimes when we are talking about that cup today, we had 5 years to organize the cup. We were unable to do so in time, and we therefore took our dirty laundry, our shame, our incompetence, our inabilities, and showed them to the world. So our message was that, though, in spite of this, in spite of all these things that happened,
there were lots of negative happenings.
A lot of negative happenings. Yes.
2018, and least Cameroonians lived in poverty. That's
but we saw, in spite of this, that Cameroonians came together. They were able, you know, at the level of the CPP, at the level of Stand Up for Cameroon, we've always asked Cameroonians to exercise their power. And we saw that Cameroonians were able to exercise their power in certain situations. We especially saw that after the election, when people were being arrested, your journalist colleagues were being arrested, and we saw Cameroonians come together.
Strong mobilization
over social media, on the ground, and they were able to get people liberated. Even, I am certain that even the gesture, even though it is somewhat of an empty gesture that the head of state made, freeing what he said were 289 people. We are still looking for the names to verify that actually 289 people. But even that gesture was due to that mobilization that Cameroonians did at the end of the year. So this gives us hope for next year, because I think that mobilization is the lesson.
We're telling them not to stop, and they need to continue.
It's the lesson of the year. Cameroonians need to realize that when they act, when they come together to stand for principles, for justice, something changes in the system. And so for us, that is the lesson of 2019.
Which means you're addressing Cameroonians, and there's nothing you're telling government?
No, you know, at the level of CPP and Stand Up for Cameroon, we have told you years ago that we have nothing to say to this government. This government needs to go. That's the only thing we have to say to it. It's time for it to go. People asked me, did I listen to the head of state's end of year speech? I said no. The only thing that would have yes, we can come to that.
We're going to talk about that now. I want us to revisit the head of state's address to Cameroonians, that is on January 31, 2018. He talked lengthily on our politics, and he took interest in measures to solve the Anglophone crisis. He has exhorted separatist fighters to drop their weapons, and failure to do so may attract military clampdown. While President Biya has delivered his address to Cameroonians, other self-proclaimed leaders also delivered what they describe as end-of-year address to Cameroonians. Reactions of Cameroonians and the political class is what you see in these reports.
If my appeal to warmongers to lay down their weapons remains unheeded, the defense and security forces will be instructed to neutralize them. Words of President Paul Biya as he delivered his end-of-year address to the nation. President Paul Biya noted he has made strides in resolving the current Anglophone crisis and quoted the case of the recently created National Commission for Disarmament, Demobilization and Reintegration, which will supervise the disarmament of Boko Haram ex-combatants and armed groups in the northwest and southwest region, and thus pave a way for normalcy to return in the two conflict-hit regions of the country. President Paul Biya equally added that measures will be taken to fast-track bilingualism and multiculturalism, and added he intends to continue dialoguing with people of goodwill to bring about lasting peace in the country. While President Paul Biya delivered his end-of-year address, Maurice Kamto, president of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement Party and former presidential candidate who once claimed victory of the October 7 presidential elections, delivered what he also called his end-of-year address to his supporters. In a speech which has been widely circulated online, he regretted that Cameroon has now become a collapsed state and a nation falling apart. He regrets that President Paul Biya has continued to apply a military solution rather than a political solution to the Anglophone crisis, causing the crisis to degenerate gradually into a civil war. Maurice Kamto noted that President Paul Biya has hijacked Cameroon to satisfy his ego, noting that the recent withdrawal of Cameroon's right to host the 2019 African Cup of Nations is a demonstration of a completely failed regime. He equally noted that President Paul Biya's recent release of 289 Anglophone detainees is a piecemeal and falls far short of what is expected of the regime, noting that the only way out is calling for a truce and proceeding to the dialogue table. As for the interim leader of the so-called Republic of Ambazonian, Dr. Samuel Sako, speaking to his followers, promised that he will continue to fight for the restoration of the virtual Republic of Ambazonian. He noted that one of the action plans for 2019 is moving from a defensive strategy to an offensive strategy. Despite the several speeches, Cameroonians are looking forward to the day when the crisis will come to an end and for peace to reign in the country.
After explaining to Cameroonians what emergence is all about, President Paul Biya emphasized on the necessity to accelerate growth rates by redoubling efforts to stay on the path of this emergence. This, he said, could be possible by reducing imports in order to give Cameroon's agricultural commodities added value, construct solar energy plants to meet local demands and the needs of agro-industries. Although he admitted that Cameroon will have to increasingly resort to financial institutions with accessible concessional leading rates to finance projects in the country, the head of state, nonetheless, expressed indignation on delays in project maturation. Despite this, the head of state seemingly seems undisturbed with reasons why Cameroon has been stripped of the 2019 AFCON hosting rights, but goes ahead to announce that all investments relating to the organization of the competition will be carried out. The list of which Cameroonians had expected from his end-of-year speech. From reactions, Cameroonians had certainly wished heavy sanctions to be meted on those involved with delays in the projects, embezzlement of funds through overbillings and other forms of mafia related to the construction of infrastructure for the competition. According to reports, overbillings in the contracts amounted to about 1 billion CFA francs, and out of 51 contracts that were awarded, about 10 are said to have been fake. A recent report from the African Development Bank had warned Cameroon against overspendings, which continued to plunge the country into more external debts. It cited the case of the construction of an ultra-modern sports complex in Yaoundé, where contractors built a truck of sand at 700,000 CFA francs instead of about 120,000 CFA francs. This is just an example from several other material that were listed. The economic loss related to the withdrawal of the hosting rights from Cameroon cannot be ignored. Business persons too were certainly expecting the head of state to address this issue and how it would badly affect the economy of Cameroon.
Usually, that's always you have. I have noticed it's about them, no problem. I have noticed it's above his level. Because if I remember, 2010, May 2010, they gave him 2 maps, the UN. They gave that this territory is two territories. That's why they come and give it the map that you have to maintain part of independence. So they have nothing to do in this territory.
Council of Matter.
Pardon?
Me come for the point of Council of Matter.
Me come right down here.
Me come right down here. Me no member of the same person down here. We need it. Now Papa, but we need it.
President's speech, I was so disappointed because looking at the situation of the country now, just look at the town. This is Bamenda. Used to be very funky, very, very emotional on a day like this, but everywhere is locked. I thought the president was supposed to, give a message of peace, talk about reconciliation. I was so disappointed with what he finally said, because Cameroon used to be a place where a francophone will admire to see an anglophone speaking French or speaking English. But it is so disappointed today that though we are not enemies with our francophone brothers, but it is so disappointed today that when you are in Bamenda, you listen to somebody speaking French, you consider him an enemy, whereas all of us are Cameroonians.
Of La Republique. It's a normal speech as other ones. It has nothing to do with the crisis in the northwest and southwest. So he says the speech does not have any impact on the crisis that are going on there. The president himself knows that he does not have the powers to administer here as the president. If he was, he would have solved this problem since 2016. But now, the matter of the Anglophones, as they so often call it, is an international issue. So the president's hands are tied. He cannot solve our problem here in the northwest or southwest.
The dust raised by President Paul Biya's recent State of the Nation address is yet to settle, with many people chatting and joking over the new concept of glissement, which is a subtle way to refer to the loss of the rights to host the African Cup of Nations football tournament this year. Political pundits in the Northwest region are more preoccupied with the prevailing socio-political and economic situation of the region.
Concerning the Anglophone crisis, I came out with a crusade that the Anglophone marginalization was one of the key problems that we had in this country. And I said it, no Anglophone have been appointed Minister of Territorial Administration. No Anglophone have been appointed to manage one of the key ministries in charge of institutional matters, etc., etc. But unfortunately and regrettably, the president went through what they call the so-called mafias around, when and appointed a very wrong man to handle Minister of the Administration.
Hardly does a day go by without a person dying on either side of the ongoing insecurity, which many have described as a senseless war amongst the same people.
Yes, now saying that, yes, we had a point, let us give him a chance to try to solve the problems. He now knows the problems. He knows that we were marginalized. He knows that we were not happy with one thing or the other. So he knows those things, and let's give him a chance by coming out of the bushes.
A situation which would have been avoided if pieces of advice and human greed did not override the feeling for brotherliness and love for country.
In February 12, 2017, what a meeting in Yaoundé, I gave a genuine advice concerning the Anglophone problem. And I said it clearly that any illness that is wrongly diagnosed or intentionally diagnosed wrongly can never be cured. And I told them that let you people inform the head of state, tell the head of state that the Anglophone community are not happy. And they have manifested their disappointment or their grievances by good stance on Monday, which is a serious situation, and so on and so forth. But that time the situation was only in Batable and Bello in Boyo division. But now all the subdivisions in the Northwest region and Southwest region are already in crisis.
Today, The region's economy is dangling as towns and villages continue to empty out their occupants. Northwest politicians now say President Biya is already seeing the real truth and is drawing the line between alleged wrong intelligence earlier received, reportedly given by elites of Northwest.
President Paul Biya have been working with people who were not telling him the truth. And when he says sensitive to people's worries, it means he have not known the truth. And she's working towards putting up people-oriented government, not people's anti-government. Anti-people's government cannot work in this situation.
If truly the real information from the real situation on the ground has started flowing, then it will also soon be high time the number one citizen took up the sledgehammer to deal with those who must have been fooling him for over 2 years, thereby paving the way out of the present troubles. The town of Bamenda seems to begin the new year on a bad footing. On this Wednesday, January 2nd, 2019, the chief town of the Northwest region shut down at midday. All businesses were grounded after it was rumored that everyone should pack home. While some say the scare was from Amazonian fighters, others said it's from the military who have decided to frighten the people to close down.
No, the streets are still very dry. Maybe people are still resting after the new year. And though there are some parts of the town that we are hearing gunshots, all the markets are closed. Except when is somehow functioning.
At the Bamenda Main Market, the market master was left alone after the sudden departure of all his tenants from the over 2,500 shades in the market.
I am here present in the market with the traders, and suddenly I see people parking. Then I begin to wonder what's going on. I go around the market, go around the street. I observe nothing, but the rumors I'm getting is that phone calls have come from other markets that there are people asking that they should close down. The people are unknown. Nobody has informed me of the people, whether it is, I don't know, the military, or it is the Amber Boys, or it's, whatever person, I don't know. I just observed that everybody's parking and the market is virtually empty, as you see behind me.
For all market, they don't close, and I place them where we carry them. If market not function, taxi not function. So as market don't close, so automatically I get for close. Go me too for us. So I don't know how we from there.
With most of the streets deserted, the few persons still hanging around in the commercial center were trying to catch the last available taxi and motorbikes, even at cutthroat fares, to rush back home for fear of the unknown. Though Bamenda witnessed a low-keyed celebration of the New Year feast, the little hangover disappeared with the wave of panic that gripped the town the second day of the year.
Welcome back. I'm accompanied by the president of Cameroon's People's Party. She's called Edith Kawala. Now, what did you retain from the president's speech?
So,
because I know you
yes,
watch.
As I was saying, no, I did not, and I've not watched the president's speech for.
Now, where did you get the speech
over
from?
5 years. Well, the speech comes out written afterwards.
Okay.
But I've not watched, and because the only thing that we are interested in that president saying is, sorry Cameroonians, I have failed and I am now resigning. That's the only speech that could be of interest.
Mm-hmm.
So every other thing is one, we have heard it before. Mm-hmm. We have no expectations, mm-hmm. none. And I think Cameroonians need to realize that mm-hmm. this government has failed woefully. And in 2018, what we experience, what we are describing, are the results of failure. These are failed results. Now, the only question which is before us as Cameroonians is, do we continue to accept this? Do we continue to go on as if it's business as usual? Because we have now gotten to the stage where people are dying every day, more and more displaced every day. You have some stories coming which are horrific, things which we could not imagine as Cameroonians a couple of years ago are happening to us. Are we going to keep following these people down the path? That is the only question which is before us. Okay. And the answer for us is very clear.
Which means that we had the impression that the head of was speaking more to himself rather than addressing Cameroonians. What some people tell you.
You know, I think so. And like I said, really, my only interest in the head of state is for him to leave. I will not comment more than that.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, let's look at the measures. He talked lengthily about the Anglophone crisis. It's 3 years on, and he called on separatist fighters to drop their arms. Failure to do so, and the military is going to help them do so. Now, what's your take on that?
You know, that statement, Mr. Biya declared war on his own citizens 2 years ago. And he has reiterated, he's just repeating, because when you say you are going to neutralize, that is the term, neutralize Cameroonians, your citizens, you know, this regime has gotten us used to language which is unacceptable anywhere else in the world. For a head of state to say that he's going to neutralize his own citizens, it's incredible and completely unacceptable. But we also laughed when we heard that. We are picking up bodies every single day in the northwest and southwest. This neutralization is what? Is to increase the number of bodies? What new thing is he going to do? Is it that where they were killing 10, they will now kill 20 or 50? Or what is the neutralization all about? We should realize that we have a problem. The fundamental problem which brought people to the streets peacefully, because we should never forget, today there are armed fighters. That is true. However, and we stand firmly against that armed fight. Sure, but we should not forget that there was non-violent fighting for a year. When the lawyers and the teachers came out in October 2016, it was non-violently. Who brought violence? The state. From day one, the lawyers were attacked. The teachers were attacked. The students in Boya were rolled in the mud, as we were all live witnesses to the violence of the state against people who were fighting non-violently. This continued. Who brought violence? The state, by cutting off the internet for 100 days. That is violence to an entire population. The majority of people who were going through the internet cut had not demonstrated. They had not been a part of the protest. It is the government that took something that was being protested by a few people and made it into a general problem for everybody. Then the worst part was the shooting at non-violent protesters on the 22nd of September and on the 1st of October. So we should remember, because we are against violence. We have said it from the beginning. We never thought that we should take up arms to fight. We never, and we disagree with it till today. But sometimes I hear people putting government and the armed fighters on the same, like they are on the same balance. They are not on the same balance. One is a government. It's an army financed. I've not financed any armed fighter. No armed fighter is representing me.
Is it possible for separatist fighters to drop their arms, as the head of state has called on them to do so?
I have my doubts. We have called on the separatist fighters to drop their arms in the past. Why? Because the arms in the Anglophone population are harming the population. I hear people say these separatist fighters are there for self-defense. My question is, whom have they defended? Which village has not been burnt because they were armed fighters? Who has not been killed because they were armed fighters? Whom have they defended? Whom have they protected? On the contrary, the armed fighters, because they fight a guerrilla type of warfare, they may go in, kill one gendarme, or kill kill a few soldiers. What is the reaction then of the very violent, oppressive regime which we have? They come in and they destroy everything in their path. They burn villages, they kill randomly, they brutalize the population. So who is benefiting? Who is benefiting from this armed fight? I've also been very strong about that. The armed fight is not benefiting the Anglophone population. We have not seen any gain. If somebody can tell me what is the single gain from the armed fight,
now,
I'm willing to listen.
Now let's look at this. Okay.
But this does not mean that President Biya should threaten people, because that's what he did. It was a threat. This does not mean that President Biya should threaten people. He is a head of state. His citizens are dying. His citizens are displaced. He has never been there to even see what is actually happening. He has never gone to the ground. We as the CPP, we have been to Northwest and Southwest, from Yaoundé and Douala, bringing our members from the Center Province, from the West Province, 9, 10, 11 times during this crisis. Okay. So President Biya, what he should do, disarmament, which is what he wants to do.
But that's one of the measures he cited in
disarmament is the result of a negotiated peace. Okay. You do not disarm unilaterally.
So which means there should be dialogue before.
This process, which, by the way, the Cameroonians, once again, they got it wrong. They forgot one R, because it is DDRRR. Demobilization, disarmament, repatriation, reintegration, and rehabilitation. That is the process. And that process is the result of a negotiated peace. You sit down with people, you negotiate, you decide that the war must stop, and then you say, how is it going to stop? How are we going to disarm? How are we going to repatriate? How are we going to rehabilitate? It is a negotiated peace. You don't sit in Yaoundé, you have never even been to the place where the war is taking place, and then you say you have created a committee. This management by committee and by speeches has produced catastrophic results.
Now, when you listen to his speech, he said he's ready to talk with people of goodwill to end the crisis.
To me, this question of ready to talk, because I've heard many government officials say, oh, but who do we even talk to? We don't know, there are so many groups, and so on and so forth. This shows the bad faith, and President Biya shows his bad faith again, once again, in this speech. As Anglophones, there are three major tendencies in the Anglophone population. Okay. There are those who want independence. Okay. There are those who are for remaining as one country, but having autonomy of the region. So federation, 2 state, 4 state, 10 state, whatever your type of federation, there are those who are for federation. And then there are those who are with Mr. Biya. There are Anglophones who are with Mr. Biya, who feel there is an Anglophone problem, but we can just do a few improvements and improve the problem. Those are the three tendencies in the Anglophone population. Now, we have not seen Mr. Biya sit with any of those tendencies. We have those who are for independence. Their leaders are under Mr. Biya's lock and key as we speak. Are they not? Are the leaders of the independence movement not in jail? If he wants to talk to them, he simply takes a car, moves them from the Kondengi to his palace, and they will have a conversation. What is stopping him? They are totally under his control. So how can he say, I will talk to people of goodwill? Has he asked to collect them and bring them to the palace, and they have refused? So those ones are 100% under his control. If he wanted to talk to them, he could do so. Those who are for some form of federation, that I count ourselves in that group. We are so many out here, vocal, talking about this problem, talking about the need for us to revisit the fundamentals of the Cameroonian nation, to revisit the situation so that we can have Anglophone rights and remain in one country. We have nobody of that tendency. That is the stand of most of the political parties. None has been invited by Mr. Biya to talk about the Anglophone problem. The initiative which was put on the table by the Cardinal Tumi. Now, one would have thought that Mr. Biya, who says he wants to talk to people of goodwill.
So were you like expecting him to call the name Cardinal Tumi's name or AGC misaddress?
With the Cardinal putting that initiative on the table, he would have jumped on that. I know for a fact that the Cardinal has asked for a meeting with Mr. Biya. He has requested a meeting. He has not been received. And believe you me, from the work we do on the ground, almost every Anglophone leader has asked for a meeting with Mr. Biya. The funds have asked for a meeting. The church has asked for a meeting. The church outside of Cardinal Tumi, that is the active bishops, the churches asked for meetings individually, that is as Catholics, as Presbyterians. They have come together as in a ecumenical group and asked for audience with Mr. Biya. He has received no one. How can this man get up and say that he's willing to talk to people? He's not.
Now, the fact that
and let me finish. Even his own people, because there are Anglophones who are on Mr. Biya's side. Okay. We have never seen him call a meeting of Anglophones within his party to sit down with them and say, please, because even those Anglophones admit that there is an Anglophone problem, except for a few of them. And what do we see?
That they are close to him and they cannot tell him.
It is those few who say there is no problem that he puts in positions and gives promotions to.
Now, how can
as a group he could have brought those people together?
Now, I want to ask a question that now the people that are close to the head of state, we're talking about of these English-speaking Cameroonians who walk to him daily. These same people he sent to talk to people, they came back to him. We think he holds a meeting with them. Is he going to change anything? Because maybe he must have told him what he wants to hear.
He has not talked to them directly. This is a huge problem.
Okay, want a formal meeting.
This is a huge problem with Mr. Biya's style of management. He does not talk to people directly. He sits, these people go. He talked about his bilingualism and a multicultural committee. This commission does not have a direct relationship with the head of state. They go on the ground, they gather information, and they go and write reports.
Now the fact that the head of state failed to mention AGC, All Anglophone General Conference, initiated by Christian Cardinal Tumi, does it come to annul the holding of this conference?
Not at all, not at all.
Because if he's talking about people of goodwill and he fails to mention, the AGC conference.
No, I think.
Do we have hopes that it's ever going to hold?
I think we have to conclude on the Anglophone problem, as in all the other problems facing Cameroonians today. In 2019, our job has to be to go to Yaoundé. The Yaoundé has refused to come to the people. So the people must go to Yaoundé and bring a stop to this war.
Okay.
It is up to us as Cameroonians to march on Yaoundé for peace. If we want peace, we can no longer sit in our regions and be dying every day.
You're talking of English-speaking Cameroonians,
or
Cameroonians as a whole.
This war does not impact only English-speaking Cameroonians. It impacts Cameroonians as a whole. And there are other problems which Cameroonians as a whole have, which must be addressed. So the objective that we have is that we must move to Yaoundé.
But we should have leaders.
Of course.
And who are the leaders?
And here's
who
the
should
leadership.
pull people
of course.
to Yaoundé?
Yeah, we are standing in front of you. We are standing in front of you.
Who are we talking about?
You want me to go and look for a new leader? I'm standing in front of you as a leader. You want me to go?
It's a question because I wanted you to be clear.
As you know, personally, I have moved to Yaoundé several times.
Okay.
And I believe that if you want change, the place to protest is in Yaoundé.
Okay.
If I want your attention, Madam Ndih,
okay,
I don't live where you are and go and be protesting 2,000 miles away. I come to your doorstep and protest to you. We need Mr. Biya to address the violence which he instigated. It needs to come to a stop. We need to move to Yaoundé and demand that he do so. And if he does not do so, he should leave.
Okay.
Yes.
Now the crisis is 3 years on already. This is 2019.
Yes.
Which means that solution is moving to Yaoundé for dialogue.
Absolutely.
For dialogue to take place.
Moving to Yaoundé to demand, because dialogue is one step, to demand that we initiate. This is what we have always talked about.
You're going to Yaoundé to ask for an audience?
No, we are marching to Yaoundé to demand, 1, the end of violence.
Okay.
2, dialogue. 3, political transition. These are the steps for us to get out of this crisis as a nation. And let us not forget that the crises are many. We focus on this crisis because people are dying. But people are also dying in the extreme north. People are also dying in the east. People are dying right here in Douala because we lack basic services.
Okay.
So it is Cameroonians that must move to Yaoundé.
Okay. Gunmen attacked plantation workers in the southwest region of Cameroon this week. They chopped off fingers of at least 6 workers. Confusion as workers down tools for fear of Amazonian attacks. Let's watch this story. We'll be right back. These are some of the workers of the rubber section of Cameroon Development Corporation in Tico in the southwest region of Cameroon. These pictures show them lying on their cottage hospital beds with bandaged hands. Some of them had their fingers and hands chopped off by armed men as they stormed the rubber plantations this Thursday. Gong Ivo is a Tico-based reporter. He recounts their ordeal on a telephone conversation.
Presently, as of now in Tico, workers of the Cameroon Development Corporation, they are living in fear after some 6 workers in a rubber section of Sonecamp, precisely on a rubber estate in Tico, were attacked and were wounded by some unidentified gunmen late last night, breaking this morning, when the gunmen, over 50 of them, attacked Sonecamp. They arrested over 500 men, took them to a parade ground. They started questioning them. Why are they going to work whereby they have been paid just June and July salary of their 7 months due salaries? Some of them, they were beaten. Those guys, they used calluses to beat them up. Some, their 5 fingers were chopped off. Some of them, their toes. Some were even pierced with knives. So as of now, they are at the cottage hospital.
According to reports on the ground, the CDC workers had defied an order from suspected separatist fighters to stay away from their farms. But the workers were owed 6 months of salary, as said to have been motivated by 1 month's salary paid a week ago, what probably pushed them to the farms this Thursday.
Early this morning, workers of the banana section, they were about to resume work after they were paid a month's salary last week. But when they got the news that workers of the rubber section from the rubber estate have been attacked, they decided not to show up. And when I went to the hospital, I saw the CMO, that is the Chief Medical Officer, and the Chief of Security of the Cameroon Development Corporation from the head office in Boda, who was here. But as of now, no administrative officer has been there as of now. But I don't know whether it's because they will pass around. But the workers are there, their relatives are there. They are crying because they don't know what they are going to do, especially those whose hands were chopped off fingers, his left hand were all chopped off, so he's confused, he don't know what to do. And they're complaining that they are afraid, just like what happened with their colleagues who have attacked some months ago. They were abandoned at the cottage hospital. After 5 days, they were discharged, and they went home. They take care of themselves, so they are, I don't know how to put it, they're in a state of confusion. They don't know what they are going to do after this. In the state of the country, what is happening in the 2 Anglophone regions, there's total fear in the minds of workers of the Cameroon Development Corporation, not only rubber, but even banana and palms.
Tension is high and the fear of the unknown reigns. And the CDC plantations, that is, banana, palm oil and rubber plantations in the 2 English-speaking regions, are void of its workers. In August, the agro-industry said more than 6,000 of its 20,000 workers had fled sporadic attacks, killings and kidnappings from armed separatist fighters seeking an independent English-speaking state. Welcome back. I'm still accompanied by the president of Cameroon's People's Party. She's called Ndih Kawala. Now, I wanted to say something very briefly on this attack on workers of plantation. Now, were you shocked? It's not the first time. Now, this is the beginning of 2019, and the workers are living in fear.
First and foremost, it is important for us to address condolences to all those families who have lost people in 2018, who have lost family members, and who have been victims of very violent attacks by the armed separatists. This is not the first attack. This is not the first group of people. So many people have been attacked by these young men to whom we have given arms. And we want to say that Cameroon People's Party, Stand Up for Cameroon, which we belong to, we have always been against. We have always been against an armed fight. We can fight without violence. It has been done in so many other places. The Burkinabés, they removed their dictator from power without violence. The Tunisians did it. We do not need to go with violence to remove Mr. Biya from power. And when we attack the very population, because these fighters claim to be fighting for an independent Southern Cameroon, when they attack their citizens, because I don't know whether they are going to invent some new citizens or whether it is the people who live in that part of the country that they claim they want to make independent. Is it those people that they intend to manage tomorrow? And we have to measure the impact, because believe you me, those workers whose fingers have been cut, their children are not going to forgive those people who cut the fingers of their parents off. These armed fighters, they are sowing the seeds of hate in our communities. And that seed, it grows, it is nurtured for years and years and years. They are demonstrating to the world, because we stood up as Anglophones to say, we are people who are for justice, we are people who are for uprightness, we are people who are for human rights, and then we turn around and we abuse those human rights.
All right. Ahead of municipal and parliamentary elections coming up this 2019, political parties have embarked on sensitization campaigns to get many more eligible voters registered into the electoral list. Let's watch this story. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm accompanied by the president of Cameroon's People's Party. She's called Ndih Kawala. Now, 2nd January, registration has started already for those who want to register on the electoral list. Now, what's your party doing to mobilize people to register on the electoral list?
So, in the last elections, the CPP did not go for elections, and we decided to step back. That is to leave our colleagues who had decided to go to the elections to go ahead. This time we say no. No elections in Cameroon until we have solved fundamental issues. We should stop accompanying Mr. Biya.
Okay.
No elections in Cameroon until we are solving the Anglophone
Which
problem.
means that the CPP is not waiting for
how
this.
How are people going to vote in Bangem?
Okay.
How are they going to vote in Kwakwa? How are they going to vote in Wum or in Kumbu? We should stop this nonsense. We should stop this nonsense. Cameroonians cannot be dying on one hand, and then you are saying going to register for election as if they were in a country where nothing is going on. How are those in the Anglophone regions going to vote? Do we forget? Are we willing to forget that it is between the 25th of September and the middle of October that we had the greatest exodus from Northwest and Southwest? The number of displaced people tripled in less than 1 month. Are we saying we just ignore that and we go on with business as usual? Are we saying which organ are we going to register with? The same elecam that we saw at the Supreme Court, at the Constitutional Council? Is it that same elecam we are going to register with? Which Constitutional Council will be judging the cases? Is it the same Constitutional Council is in place, or are we imagining that it's an imaginary one somewhere? We do not have the fundamentals to organize an election. Election means you have political freedoms. Election means you have free and fair institutions which can organize the election. Election means that you are able to know the electoral database. When people register, you are able to see who has registered, where are their names, and so on and so forth. We do not have those fundamentals in place. We should not make the mistake this time. Okay. This time we are not sitting quiet. We are not stepping back. We are saying to Cameroonians, no, no, and no.
Which means the CPP is not going in for municipal parliamentary election until those fundamentals.
Until we put in place the fundamentals. And anybody who goes for election, any political party, should explain to us. We are asking Cameroonians, take your political leaders to task. Because everybody who went for that election, we saw them after at the Constitutional Council complaining to us. We saw people who knew there was war in Northwest and Southwest and who went for election coming after to say, oh, there was war in Northwest. They didn't know that before going for the election. We saw people who went to elections knowing that the Constitutional Council was composed entirely of CPDM people coming to us afterwards and saying, oh, the Constitutional Council is unfair. And now those same people want us to go for municipal and legislative elections? No, we should stop joking around with the lives and the future of Cameroonians.
Which means that they should not even register people on the electoral list. It's not important.
Cameroonians let us mobilize and go and move this regime out of Yaoundé. After that, we will set the foundation for elections.
Okay.
Stop playing a game. Stop playing a game. It is the lives of people we are talking about. Those people whose hands have been chopped, it is because we are unable to put into place the fundamentals. Let's stop joking around. 2019 is the year for political transition in Cameroon.
All right, thank you very much for honoring our invitation.
Thank you, a pleasure to be here.
And to you all, they'll say thanks for watching. Take another rendezvous same time next week. Goodbye.